Welcome to the Quota podcast. I'm Dylan Fole.
And I'm Gavin Malcolm.
Our guest tonight is Mike Murfitt, BMX rider, coffee roaster extraordinaire.
All around good guy. We get to talk about some fun BMX stories from growing up. We talk about really everything from passion projects to doing what makes you happy. So enjoy.
Every serious conversation I ever have with anybody, I'm always with a pen or my phone or something.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious.
I remember my parents chewing my ass about that when I was a kid, dude. They're just like, pay attention. I'm like, I am. Like, if I put this down, I won't be paying attention.
Yeah,
I'll be somewhere else.
Hence the invention of fidget spinners, but thankfully you don't have one of those.
No, I was never a fan of
too
that.
much.
Dude, I'll tell you what, fidget spinner was something that got me away from texting and driving for a while there.
What?
Yeah.
Let's get into that.
It's like the weirdest thing. Like, I was always made fun of them, right? And I'm had a fidget spinner, and I'd be driving and not texting, picking up my phone at all.
Huh.
Whoa.
It's really weird.
Something to do?
Yeah, just you're busy. You're not looking at your phone because that's just a habit thing. You're sitting here and you're bored and you're just same thing with the fidget spinner. You're doing something. Your brain's working.
Yeah, crazy. So now that fidget spinners have gone out of style, are you back to texting?
Oh yeah. I try and not be I always try and be so conscious of the fact that people could be on the road or you could hit somebody riding. I don't know. I'm always so scared of that, but I still catch myself just scrolling on Facebook or something. I'm are you kidding me? Why am I doing that?
Yeah.
That's so dumb.
Especially now, traffic is so insane, but it's probably insane because people are on their phones and not paying attention and crashing and all this. But if I'm going 1 mile an hour in traffic, even if I'm listening to a podcast or music or something, I get so bored.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's where, back to the fidget stuff, normally I go through tons of gum, a pack a day for sure. But obviously that's super unhealthy. So I got those cinnamon toothpicks and smashed a box of those.
Chewing on wood is so much healthier.
It's gotta be better than the chemicals and stuff that's in the gum.
Dude, I do the same thing with Tic Tacs though.
Yeah.
I can't a box of Tic Tacs gone in a day.
For sure.
Easy gone in a day.
Wow.
Absolutely. I defy anyone to make a box of Tic Tacs last longer than a day. Can't be done.
Yeah, it's impossible. Chapstick's the same thing. If I have chapsticks in my pocket, I'm just all day long, dude, putting it on. And I'm just why am I doing that?
I think I just have a natural impulse problem. The second I don't have something that's wholeheartedly consuming my attention,
you need to fill the void.
Something, yeah. If it's got 98% of my attention, I need something to fill that 2%. No matter what's happening, 100% of my attention has to be used. Nothing can be wasted.
The joys of ADD, I guess that would be, you know what I mean? You always need to be doing something.
Yeah.
I wish I could be content all the time of just sitting down and doing nothing. Because I'm always you know what? I'm just going to sit down and take life in for a minute. And then I'm just bored. I'm all right, I need to go go for a run or pull out my phone or go ride my bike or something.
Yeah.
But I always crave that when I'm so busy. I'm I want to sit down and do nothing. And then you do, and you're all right, I want to go do something.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me.
I relate
being
to
busy
that.
is better than not busy, but yeah, try meditating or something, you'll go insane.
Yeah, that's a skill that I want to learn. I've been the last 3 or 4 years I want to learn how to meditate and just be myself or in my own head for a little bit, but I can't. It's so hard to just sit there for a minute and just think what you're thinking, and that's fine, it's weird.
There's guided meditations that I've done, and I haven't lately. I need to get back onto it, but on YouTube, Tara Brach is really good. She just says calming things.
Yeah.
And,
I'd be out
to it
2
for 2
minutes.
minutes.
How do you stay awake?
You just do.
Yeah,
you sit up. You don't lay down in bed in the dark. Otherwise, yeah, of course you're gonna fall asleep.
I've tried meditating a couple times with my friends Rachel and Anthony. They do a guided meditation, and every single time I've fallen asleep 10 minutes in, fully I've done it sitting in a backless chair on a stool because I was trying to make it as hard as possible.
Oh, that's awesome.
And literally I just become immediately relaxed, and then because I'm not using 100% of my attention, it's kill all power, shut everything off.
Reserve mode.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you also only sleep a few hours a night, it seems like.
It's possible. Well,
that could be.
Going back
And
to
they're only 10 minutes long, so.
that actually would help.
Yeah.
Because the other ones are long. Going back to the like ADD mind and like trying to figure that out. I'm soon going to be going to one of those like deprivation chambers and seeing how it goes. You down? Because
dude, I would love to check that out.
I think you would struggle equally.
Yeah.
Just being completely in the dark, alone, with no stimulation whatsoever for 90 minutes.
Yeah, like I've like read a lot about those things and like watched a few videos on them. I'm like, I don't know if I could like do that, but like once you're in there, I feel like you don't really have a choice. I mean, obviously you can knock and get out probably, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That's like one of those things that you're like, I'm gonna force myself to do this.
That's
I
where it
would
came
love.
up.
Yeah, it's a challenge for Gavin because he can't go 10 minutes without.
Dude, yeah, I would be
He
totally
can't go 1
into
minute
that.
without talking.
Yeah, I
Telling
would probably be
something.
talking to myself in there, like singing a song or like
Yes.
doing something.
Do you make up like weird scat songs, like jazz songs when you're by yourself? Because if someone records the house when Dylan and Allie aren't home, I go insane because I don't have anyone to talk to. And I'm just like skeedla bap 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 ba da 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 for hours.
No, I think you're alone. On
I
that
guess I don't know. Like I always just like sing random shit to myself.
Yeah.
Like when I'm like if I'm like riding my mountain bike, like you know somewhere by myself or whatever, I'm like singing to myself or like same. Yeah, I guess when I'm home, like or I'll say something random like where did that come from? Like why did I just do that? You know, like that's weird, but I don't know. The way your brain works is weird, I guess. And
Yeah, I think it's
all
just,
of ours.
yeah,
are-
everybody has, like-
everyone's weird and yeah.
has that, especially when you're alone. You know, like it's like you never do that when you're around people. It's like that's what's fascinating to me. But like when you're alone, that stuff like comes out of your mouth, and you're just like, I guess I didn't even think about that. Like I don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like it's maybe a bit of ADD, or maybe it's just like different personalities, right? Like there are some people where like their favorite thing is just be in silence in nature versus like I love nature and it's beautiful and it's one of my favorite places to be. And as soon as I'm in it and everything's quiet and it's still and it's just beautiful and perfect, my only instinct is like, how can we cause some ruckus?
Mhm.
Like it's so
What
funny.
can we light on fire?
Exactly.
Yeah, I struggle with that sometimes
I
too.
go both ways.
Yeah.
I love a solo hike in nature to a lake or somewhere beautiful, even if it takes like hours and hours. But then at the same time, like I guess it depends who I'm with. If I'm by myself, I'm not going to do that. But if I'm with somebody, then it's like, yeah, what?
Yeah, the vibe's
Crazy
always
thing.
different, like depending on who you're with, right? Like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess even when I'm on my own, I'll still like jump into a frozen lake or whatever just to see if I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if like that's a good comparison. Like it'd be fun to document. Like let's say you go out to like a social gathering of some sort. Immediately afterwards, like write down some notes about like everything you did at the party and how you behaved, and like, oh, I noticed I was really extroverted, or oh, I noticed this, that, and then next time you have to spend like a day at the house by yourself. As soon as people start coming home, and like take a couple minutes and write down notes about that day and like compare how you react socially and like in a group
Yeah, that would be
versus by yourself,
interesting.
and like you might learn some cool stuff about yourself. That might be fun to try.
Yeah, I like that. That would be cool.
Looking around the table,
Sounds
not
like-
one of us is going to do
No.
it.
We're not gonna do
Sounds like a lot of like
It sounds like a-
premeditated thought.
Yeah,
you know?
it
It's
sounds like
all
a
right.
great idea that'll never happen.
Yeah.
I have a
I'm
lot
glad
of
you
those.
picked up on that.
I'm
Yeah.
the same.
I
I
was
mean,
gonna say.
dude, there's so many things where I'm like, oh man, this idea sounds great, you know, and you like it dies for a little bit, and you're like, oh, why didn't I do that like a year ago? And then like you start thinking about it again, you're like,
Oh, that's right.
I'm
It's
too
gonna
busy
take
for
effort.
that. Yeah, it's like there's so many things that like I don't know. That it goes back to that like saying is like if it was easy everyone would do it kind of thing, and like then when you do like bite off one of those ideas, you're like, oh, this is actually really fun. Like I wish I would execute on all of my ideas.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like we're all the same kind of people where like we have so many ideas, like you would never get anything done.
Yeah, that's something that's worth noting and like learning is give yourself the grace to just have ideas. Like,
Mm-hmm.
my wife struggles with that. She has so many wonderful ideas, and then she gets really upset with herself for not following through on every single idea she has. I'm like, whoa, do you know how many ideas that is?
Yeah, it's like,
Like,
yeah.
Be stoked when you do follow through on one of them and just love yourself for that.
Yep. And I think it's one of those things where it's like I like always write down my ideas, and like I'll catch myself like waking up 3 a.m. and like can't go back to bed because I'm like, this is such a good idea. And I'll like write it down, and then I'm like, the next day I'm like, that is dumb. Why did I think that was a good idea? But like, writing those ideas down and then like revisiting them, like when you're like, in a clear state of mind or like thinking a little differently, you're like, oh, why was I thinking that would be a good idea? And then you can like put different spins on it and like then like start to follow through if it is a good idea.
Absolutely.
I think that's how the podcast started. Like we had talked about it for well over a year before we actually started doing it.
Yes.
We didn't even have the studio. And then once the studio, this space happened, it was still like 8 months before we did our first one or something.
And what was the catalyst for that? Do you even remember? Like what was like the tipping point to be like, oh yeah, let's do it?
I don't know, honestly.
I think it was just the time of year. It had been a real crazy year. I had gotten married, so like that, because of like the whole surprise wedding thing, and Dylan was helping with that. That took up like a significant chunk of like the last quarter of the year. Mm-hmm. And so we had all kind of gone through this giant push. I didn't know it, but we all went through this giant push. And then now Allie and I have been married, and it's basically the end of the year. And after accomplishing something like that, everyone has all this energy, and they're like, wow, I want to go do something again because we just accomplished something. They've got all the hormones that your body produces, like dopamine and all the stuff where you're like, yes, I just did something. I'm excited. I'm a builder. Yeah. Yes, I've done something good. And then that was kind of when the end of the year happened, so it was perfect timing to like reevaluate the year. As like cheesy as it sounds, totally worth doing. And that's when Dylan was like, hey, I really want to get back into Joy Quota stuff because we'd made some videos and then I broke my collarbone, and we just got busy and it was easy to fall out because we hadn't really gained any real momentum. Yep. And so that's when he asked like, hey dude, you still down? I was like, of course I'm down. I'm even more down than before.
For sure.
And then that was kind of what was the tipping point of like, all right, we didn't get enough momentum last time, so we had a really good, I guess, learning experience with that. Like we only learned valuable lessons from that, and then just use those lessons to really get a bunch of momentum going with the second round of Joy Quota, which included the podcast, because that's when it was like, well, videos are really hard to produce. How can we get more content out without necessarily having to film like 8 videos a week on top of 2 full-time jobs?
Yeah.
And then that's when I was like, oh, we can make a podcast pretty easy. And he's like, oh, I have a studio. I forgot. And then it just kind of snowballed from there.
Well, I feel like, like voice is one of those things that's like just now becoming explored too. Like, so it's cool that you guys are like getting into that, like, I guess at an earlier point. Like, because like the YouTube thing is like kind of played out and it's crazy right now. And like there's a lot of people getting into it. And like, I don't know, just looking at like podcasts right now, they're like really starting to just kind of like gain momentum. And like they've obviously been around for a while, but like people are like, everybody I talk to like is starting to tell me like, oh dude, I just started listening to podcasts and they're awesome. Like, have you heard of this one? And it's like, that's cool to hear. Whereas like YouTube is like, that's like a harder thing to break into at this point, I feel like.
It's pretty saturated.
Yeah,
I mean, they
insane.
both are, but
I think we're at the right timing for podcasts where we definitely, it's not too late for YouTube, but we've definitely missed the boat. Like if we could have, it's like,
we talk about
I've been posting on YouTube since it was started. I think 2006 or 2007. And if I would have just kept with it and done like, the copyrighted music was a huge issue for us. If I could have figured that out. Now it's easy. There's sites that you can get it and all this, but there wasn't back then. If I could have kept with it since then, like we'd be killing it.
Yeah. But I think about that a lot actually, where it's like if I would have just done like the bare minimum on YouTube, because like I look back and I'm like, oh, I posted a few videos back then, and like I was like excited about posting videos online. It's like if you would have just done the bare minimum, like from then till now, like it would have been something bigger. Like that's always crazy to think about. Like,
yeah,
in hindsight, like you look back and it's like hindsight's always like a bitch, if you will. Like you look back and you're just like, damn, I wish I would have thought little bit differently,
totally.
or that would have been a priority. But again, it like builds the story into being like, all right, let's catapult this forward from there.
That's actually a pretty good point of like the quote unquote bare minimum. Like I hate that phrase, but it's so true of like health, right? Like I bet there's probably a lot of people who are in their like 50s where they're like, if I had just done the bare minimum for the last 20 years, like not even like working out like crazy.
Yeah, if I had to drink more water.
Like, yeah, literally like one thing that they had just done, they'd probably feel better, have better joints, like whatever it is. Or like I look at Allie's dad, he stretches every day for like 30 minutes, first thing in the morning.
That's such a good skill to have.
It's so good, and it is, I try and try and try, and it's such a hard habit to create, but he is in his 60s with a six-pack and like real healthy and like killing it, and I'm just like, all he's done is just make sure he's stretched.
Yep.
Like that's like 90%
Well,
of
and it's like tough
the
to
whole
like
thing.
build your life into having those small routines, you know, like whatever it might be, whether it's like making a video or doing like stretches or drinking more water or whatever it is. It's like, it's hard to change like your day to day. And then before you know it, you are 50 years old and you're like, oh crap, like all this time has flown by and, you know, my body's blown out because I wasn't stretching or I wasn't drinking water. And like,
That's the most action sports
It
phrase.
is too, dude.
My body's blown out.
Like,
I love that.
And like, there's a lot of times where like, even now, like I'll turn 27 next month and I'm like, I should not feel the way that I feel. Like I know that I've hit the ground a lot, but like if I would stretch a little bit more and again, drink more water and maybe drink a little less beer, like I probably wouldn't feel like achy every day.
Yeah.
It is something that I consciously thought about when I was probably like 25, that like I don't need to go crazy, but I need to at least do something. And it's not an everyday thing that I'm stretching and all this, but like eating healthy, drinking green smoothies, even though they're not as delicious as other things you could drink. But it seems to help. And like my goal, like I don't care if I live to 100, but I want to be like riding my bike, snowboarding, surfing until the very end.
Yeah, just capable. You know what I mean? Like I always tell people that it's like, people are like, well, like you ride a lot. Like why don't you go to the gym? Like don't you want to be able like to do it longer? I'm like, no, I just want to be like capable. I want to be able to get out there and like by doing the things that like riding a bike or snowboarding more often, like just being active in those regards. Like I feel like that prolongs your time of doing it instead of being like, I'm going to take a couple years off from doing that and then come back to it. Like that doesn't mean you're going to be able to do it for longer. I feel like staying in the movement area, like, you know, being active for a long time means that you can do it for longer. Like I know people that are like in their 70s still riding mountain bikes. That's insane to me. But it's like, when I look at that, I'm like, all right, I can be 70 years old riding a mountain bike. That's crazy to think about. But like, you look at those people and they're like killing it. It's like, that's cool. I don't know. You don't want to fall when you're that old, of course, but
A lot less risk taking, that's for sure.
yeah, a little bit more tame, but I don't know. They're still out there doing it. And
That's like my dad. He's, I think, turned 66 this year, and he like just did the Iron Horse Durango to Silverton road bike thing, and like they still go road biking, and he climbed Everest Base Camp for his 60th, and like Kilimanjaro with 2 kidney stones for his like 63rd.
That's
like,
so rad,
crazy
though.
stuff like that.
But it's like just having that, like, I just want to do it. You know, being capable again is like just never stopping, I think, is like a big thing. A lot of people like tone it back because they're like, oh, I'm getting older. Like I hear people all the time tell me, yeah, when you're 30, you're going to feel it. And it's like, turning 30 does not like automatically mean your back hurts more. It's like you just got lazy. You know, like you got a job that like was more important than going outside, and like now your back hurts more because you sit in the chair all day and like you're not riding your bike or climbing rocks or whatever you used to do. And when you
Taking
do
walks,
it,
like whatever it looks like to.
Yeah, it's hard to like really rationalize that when you like step back and like, oh, if I just stay active, like I can do this for longer. Instead of like doing it in like spurts, you know?
Because it is easy. It's easy to get busy. And like, even for me, my 15-minute stretches or 30-minute yoga videos, like in the morning, I'm like, oh, I have a list this long of things I need to accomplish. I'm not going to stretch today. Because it's just in your mind, it like the list is more important. But in reality, there's
the list
nothing more. Yeah, the list will
Yeah.
get done.
Well, it's
Then
gonna be
there's
there.
honestly nothing more. There should be nothing more important than taking care of your body. Cause
Yeah. Well, and it's
without
like clears your head too. Like I find that a lot where it's like if I have a lot of stuff to do and like I ride my bike before or like I know I'm going to ride my bike after, I'm like, like chill, you know, like I feel good about it. Whereas like if I'm just like going for weeks at a time, like on projects, I'm just like mad or pissed and I'm like, this sucks. Like, why am I doing this? And like, then I get on my bike and I'm like, oh yeah, like this is cool. Like what I'm doing is fun. But like, if you're not being active and like clearing your head and like having that release, then you're just going to be grumpy about it, whatever you're doing.
Totally. How did you start riding originally?
I think I was like 11 or 12. Like I always like rode, like I had a BMX bike that I rode around my neighborhood. Like had a little gang of friends that I rode with, like, you know, always since I was like, I think I learned how to ride when I was like 2 or 3. I was little and just did that. But I went to, I think it was like 6th or 7th grade. And this kid told me that he was like racing BMX. And I was like, oh, what's that? That sounds fun. Like I had like these little like dip by my house that I would jump. I'm like, oh yeah, I ride BMX, you know? And so I like went home and told my dad and he's like, oh yeah, there's a BMX track by our house. I'm like, BMX track, like there's things for that? Like that's cool. Like I'd seen stuff on TV, but like never BMX racing or anything like that, you know? So he's like, yeah, like we'll go out to the track. And somebody that he worked with was like getting rid of an like old Haro. So he like traded a shotgun for that bike and like
Nice.
we go out to the track and I was like, oh my God, like this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like I remember still to this day, like walking over that starting hill and just like looking over like all the jumps in the rhythm section. I'm just like, whoa, like this is cool. Like I'd never seen anything like that before. And like rolled in like on this janky bike and like, probably didn't even have a helmet on, you know, and like immediately in love. And so I was like, all right, like I want to race BMX. So I started racing on this like 45-pound Haro. Like,
Was it like a freestyle Haro?
yeah,
Not
it
even
was a
race
Haro
bike, yeah.
F5, dude. And, like
Yeah.
it was like huge,
That's
you know, like
amazing.
big 3-piece cranks, like just like
14-inch or 14-millimeter solid front
Yeah,
axle
exactly.
with like 48
and I'm
spokes.
pretty sure it had like a gyro and like these little tiny handlebars.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, it was like the era of like, you know, the same like as like the Nyquist like back trail Haro and like the Mira.
Don't
And,
get me
like,
started on a back trail X3.
dude, yeah. I mean, it was like basically the same bike, and like it was like this coolest like blue Haro, and I'm like, oh man, I have the coolest bike in the world, and like yeah, I started racing on that, and like took it pretty serious, and I was like, I think I turned intermediate, yeah, it's novice and intermediate, and my dad's like, all right, like you're taking this serious, let's get you a new bike, and I got a free agent, and like from there I was just like hooked, and.
What was that first time on a real race bike like? 'Cause
Oh, dude,
I
game
I
changer.
literally imagine like you've driven a Corolla your whole life and then you hop into like a Porsche GT3 and it's just like, oh,
Ripping,
all right,
dude.
totally
Yeah.
different animal.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was one of those things where it's like, all right, I've worked so hard, like on learning these like bike skills that I had, and like put it on like a bike that was a little more capable and like a little more track worthy. And I was like, oh, like now I'm like beating that kid, and
Yeah.
like started to understand like, all right, so like if I like do my sprints and I ride the right bike and like ride enough laps at the track every time, like I can be pretty good at this. And like it like kind of exploded from there and like took racing really serious. Like I traveled the country for like 4 years, I think, doing like national circuits, and like that was really fun. I don't know. Yeah.
Was that track the one that the Cordovas had?
No, so I raced ABA growing up, and there was another group called NBL. And like for some reason, like the two of them like didn't really mesh very well, and I didn't even know the Cordovas at all during racing.
Okay.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
You guys were probably racing the same track, just different days.
Well, like they didn't race ABA really, I don't think, and like I never raced NBL unless it was the indoor that they like ran up in. It was like the Budweiser Event Center up in
Yeah.
Loveland. So like unless I went up to that, like that was the only time I raced that sanction. And like I remember hearing of the Cordovas, but like never like hung out with them or anything. And we like, I think I was like 15 or 16, and we had moved to this house, and that's where I had those dirt jumps.
yeah, I know. I'm
And,
bummed I never got to ride
Dude,
it.
they were so fun. But like they started out as this like little, it was like 2 lots that a home never got, or 2 homes never got built on. And we were like, yeah, let's build jumps. So like we were literally moving into that house, you know, like we got the shovels out of the moving truck and we started digging. Like my
No
parents were
way.
still moving in, dude. Like, and it was with my
hilarious.
friend Mike Eldridge, and like we're like, I remember my dad just chewing our ass, man. He's like, get in here and help me move this couch. And like,
Sorry, Dad, I'm dirty.
Yeah,
Don't want to make
exactly,
anything.
like brand new
My
house,
shoes are muddy.
you know?
We've been watering the jumps.
Dude.
I'm sorry, I can't help.
Oh man, and like we built like these shady little jumps, and like it kind of started from there. And like my dad was working at this camper manufacturer, and they had a Bobcat, and we got our hands on that, and somehow that got back to Joey Cordova, and I got a message on MySpace, and he's like, hey dude, I'm Joey, do you want to go to a foam pit with us? And they had this like shady little foam pit up in Longmont. Like, dude, it was super shady.
Wow.
And that's how I met those guys. And like, even like the first time I met Matt, we both kind of looked at each other and were like, nah, we don't like each other. And like now we're like best friends, which is super funny. But like, I remember like us kind of like looking at each other and being like, who is that guy? Like both of us. And like, yeah.
That's
pretty
awesome.
funny.
That's something I wish that kids nowadays, because foam pits have become so much more available, that was like the best part of growing up when we did. It's like janky foam pits.
Oh, yeah.
I remember trying
I don't know
several
if
of
they've
them.
gone out of style, because like look at us right now in Colorado. There's not.
Yeah.
Well, there's like the
There's
Woodward one.
one. And
But that
like-
one's like gnarly, dude. Like, and that's like a journey to get there.
Yeah,
It's
but
not
at least
accessible.
it's in Colorado. Like
Yeah.
it used to literally be you go all the way to the East Coast or you go all the way to the West Coast and that's it. There's nothing
Yeah,
else.
there was like either Woodward had one,
And that's
like
it.
that was it. Yeah.
And you were just like, all right, well, I bet if I put clothes inside of a trash bag that's kind of like a foam block and like whatever it took to just like kind of be soft.
Dude, yeah. The one that they had was like at a goat farm. It was like an old farm.
Yes.
There was like literally goats like behind where you would like jump into the foam pit. But it was like where they would like stack the hay and like the like long concrete things. And they just built like a launch ramp and then started like stacking a bunch of foam behind it. And like,
Yes.
I remember like, dude, I'd driven past this place like 100 times. It was like right outside of Longmont. And like we rolled up and I was like, wait, seriously? Like this is here? And I've driven past it and like never knew about it. Like it was the craziest thing. And I was like, I'm going to try a backflip and like broke my nose.
Yeah, exactly.
That was not fun. But yeah, I think I learned how to do a backflip that day. So that was pretty cool.
That's
Heck
fantastic.
yeah. How often have you done that since?
I think I've done like maybe 20 real backflips ever. I don't know.
When was the last time everyone at this table has done a backflip on something that wasn't resi?
I did a flip to concrete like 3 months ago. It was fly
Ooh.
out, but
I did a fly out flip last year at some point.
yeah.
When did we do the that trip that we talked about that you didn't get to go on?
Ohio? For the
When we came back from Ohio, yeah, whatever year
Wow.
that
Oh,
was,
that's right. I remember seeing the
2010.
footage and being like, I'd never even heard of Dylan flipping anything. And then there's just a photo of him flipping a box jump. And I was just like,
That's
What?
rad.
No, I didn't flip a box jump in Ohio. I flipped into the super sketchy foam pit at Ray's that's like these weird like egg crate foam things. And then I did it to Resi there and then came back to the Woodward skate park and did it over that box jump. And then never again since unless a foam pit.
That box jump was rad, dude.
yeah.
Like
For
the
what it
one
was.
after the vert wall, that box
Yeah.
jump, yeah.
Like the least scary, least intimidating
Yeah.
ramp of all time.
I don't know why, like, I always, like, fantasize about riding that ramp again, though. Like, it was,
Really?
like, so mellow and, like, chill, but, like, I did so many fun tricks on that, like, I still, like, don't really do when I ride my bike. I don't know. Like, I
Just
learned
'cause
so
it was
much
basically
on
a
that.
fly out box jump.
Yeah, it was, like, so mellow of a landing, like, and the lip wasn't too gnarly. Like, I mean, I have a box jump in Longmont at my local park, but, like, that
thing
box
is-
jump sucks, dude.
Yeah,
It's basically like a
it's
fly
huge,
out.
but it has no real landing to
It
speak
hurts
of.
so bad, dude.
And
Yeah.
getting to it is a pain in the like everything about that.
Yeah. It's just
start in the parking
inconvenient.
lot. Start in the parking lot, pedal your ass off, and then land.
Hard couple turns at speed, bunny hop into the
Yep. Yeah, and it's just
roller.
like, I feel like I cased it, and they're like, no, you didn't case it. And I'm like, all right, like, it
cool
feels
because
like
my
I
ankles
did.
were just
Yeah,
shattered.
yeah,
so.
if I case it, it feels better than actually, like, clearing it. Like, that's not how this works.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? Yeah. Yeah, flips are scary, though, man. I think the gnarliest one I ever did was out of, like, a 3-foot berm. It was, like, my friend's house. It's actually where we roast coffee now. He has, like, a
That's
pump track
awesome.
in his backyard. And I, like, brought beer, and we're, like, hanging out. And he's like, and these guys are, like, all in their 40s, 50s. And he's like, hey, do a backflip out of that corner. And I'm like, dude, I'm not doing a backflip out of that corner. Are you crazy?
Backflipping your berm?
Yeah, and it was like brand new. Like everything was pretty soft still. And he's like, I'll give you a beer. And I was like, dude, I brought the beer. So, you know, like there's like all these kids and all these people like watching because they're like, he's going to do a backflip. And I'm like, I'm not. And I start thinking about it. I'm like, I think I could flip that. So I do a few pop outs and like didn't really think about how soft the backside of the berm was. Flipped and like dug my wheels into it and just like chest bumped my handlebars.
Yeah.
I didn't put a foot down, like hopped out, and I was just like, oh my God. I just did that. Like, but I just remember like being upside down and like the ground being like, I don't know, a foot away from my face. I just remember
like
that like
super
I can
mini
still
flip.
see it when I think about it. I'm just like, oh my God, that was not smart.
Dude. See, I really want to get at least comfortable with flips again because we're going to do some awesome dirt jumps again at Dylan's house to like put him to bed. And there's footage of me flipping. The only time I've ever done like a real backflip, I guess I've flipped Yellow's box, but like I did an actual dirt to dirt.
I remember that video
flip.
actually.
And it's like full boned out like into the handlebars, but like totally flipped it.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be like the coolest thing ever. Just one more time, and I'll be good on
happy
that.
with it. I always feel the same way
I really
about.
want to flip whip something for real.
Ooh, that would be sick.
Because I learned them, and then that'd be fun.
I always feel the same way about flips though, where I'm like, if I just do one more, I'll be happy. And then like, you know, a year goes by and I'm like, I just want to like know if I can still do it.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about tail whips. I'm like, I hate tail whips. I don't want to do them. But then I'm like, I want to air whip that quarter. I think I could still do that. You know, it's like I do one and I'm like, all right, I'm hooked on it again. But that's the same way with flips for me. Like I'm always like, I'll flip that jump and I'll be done. Like I flipped the last set at Frisco like 2 years ago and I was like,
That's a big jump.
yeah, I got talked into it. Like I didn't want to do it.
That is not a forgiving case if you don't.
Dude, I was like, the video is like I stall upside down. Like pretty much come to a stop and then
you can see yourself
sit back
thinking like,
into
do
it.
I let go? Mm-hmm. This is the moment if I'm going to let go.
Yeah, and it was just like, it came around and like, dude, it was like, it felt so perfect. I'd never like, didn't think a backflip could feel that good. And I was like stoked and I was like, all right, done. Never doing one again.
I know what it's like to be Joey.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, dude, that's how I felt. I was like, he does them so perfect, like eyes closed, just chillers, you know. And like, I was like, all right, that's how that feels. I could get used to this trick. And I was like, I don't want to mess one up.
Yeah.
Like I've never fallen on one, knock on wood, but I don't want to mess one up because that's
Do you think
scary.
Joey could do a blindfold backflip at this point? If he was on like a comfortable lip that he knew familiar,
He could
like
probably
a fly out?
blindfold flip. I mean, I've seen him like flip with his eyes closed. Like when he does like flip no-handers, his like most photos, eyes closed.
Oh, what?
See, I think getting to the jump would be the issue.
Yeah.
Blindfolded.
Yeah, if you had like some sort of a setup where like he could comfortably roll in on like a bank or like a roll in and just like get familiar with where the lip is, because I've seen like
He's so good.
Dawson's
at them,
done
dude.
like blindfolded bar to bar or like blindfolded 180 bars and stuff out of the Parker Wave because he's just so familiar
That
with
kid's
the
too
ramp.
good at bikes, man.
Yeah, he got real good. But yeah, I wonder, because I think that'd be fun to just have like a blindfold game of bike, even if it's on like flat
That'd
ground.
be so gnarly. Yeah, that'd be sick though. That should be a video right there.
That could be a video.
Yeah, dude.
I will film it. I can't predict. I'm not participating in that.
I always think I could do like a blindfolded bar, and I'm just like, nah.
That's a scary one.
Oh yeah. I think we did. It was it like the grind wheel thing.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
There was like I think it was a blindfolded hop whip.
That would be nuts.
Dude, it was so hard.
I bet you JT would get that within 3 tries. Not having touched his bike in months. Like 7 months. I bet
Probably.
he could hop on. And because I've seen him do it multiple times where like I'll randomly hit him up at the skate park. He shows up in like running shoes and still like, hey, bud, you
That
think
is
you
so
can hop whip? And
frustrating,
he's like,
man.
probably. And then first try or second try, he just does like the cleanest hop whip and rides away. I'm like, what is
You're like,
happening?
that trick is hard. That's hard. Like, yeah.
How dare you be so good?
I have a friend actually who like he rides, like used to ride a bunch, but like I've never ridden with him. He's lived out here for a few years. I think he's from Michigan. And I was at the bike shop the other day and he's like, can I ride your bike real quick? And I like look out the front window of the bike shop and he's like did the most clean hop whip I've ever seen. And I was just like, what? He's like, yeah, I haven't ridden my BMX bike in like 2 years.
Oh.
And he's like a pretty little guy, and I have like a pretty big bike, you know. And I was just like, oh my, what? Like, how did that just happen? Like, I can't like put my bike down for like 2 months and then do a hop whip. And he just did like the most like 2 pedals clean.
Yeah, like cop before he landed.
Yeah, exactly.
There was like one season in my life I wasn't landing and rolling away and then getting on the pedals. Like the bike's fully rolling away on the ground, and I'd like snag. I think I was comfortable enough where I was like really doing them well for maybe 2 months.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I remember.
I've never done it.
Do you remember Jordan El Nasser?
Yeah.
Dude, he used to catch them like a foot off the ground. Like, it was so crazy watching that kid do that trick. Like, he would do them in Joe's bike shop, and like, I'd be like, dude, how are you doing that? Like, that's like better than a fly-out whip for me. That kid was too good, and then he was just like, nah, bikes aren't that cool.
I think it goes back to the boredom thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I've watched a lot of really good riders get bored with BMX because it's just like,
It's too easy.
I keep trying things that I think are going to be difficult, and then it works every time for me. Like, there was this kid, Caleb at Parker.
I remember that
So
kid.
good,
So stylish.
right out the gates, had all the style in the world. Be like, hey, dude, I bet you can't do a one-handed manual. And within one try, he's doing it like around the whole skate park. Like a super weird trick. And you're like, how's that possible?
Just so much talent,
like-
you know. Like, that's raw talent right there. And then they're just like, oh, I'll put in a little bit of work, and like, it's like, how? That's crazy.
Yeah, and then I think he just got like a little bored versus like Dawson struggled for a while because he was like this big lanky kid on a small bike, and he was going through these crazy growth spurts and like was just kind of figuring his own body out because it was growing so much, and he was like 6 foot in middle school. Like, he was this big kid, so all of a sudden once he finally did get comfortable with, now he's just like,
Yeah, he had like that baseline of like
yeah,
hard
he's a
work.
video game character now. It's just like, oh, I can do up, down, side, square.
I just saw like a
everything.
clip of him the other day, and I was just like, what? Like, it was like a hang 10, I think, is what I watched.
Yeah, I know.
I
which
like
one.
Cruz's like Instagram, and I was like, whoa, like that's a hard trick. And he's just like, that was probably first try for that kid. He's so good.
That's, I think, something that's fun, like a new stage of BMX, because BMX was fun as a kid for a whole bunch of reasons, and then it was fun as like a somewhat grown up for a whole bunch of reasons. And now that I'm recognizing probably most of my best riding is behind me. I don't think by any means like I'll ever stop riding or like I'll ever stop pushing myself and progressing. It'll just be in different ways, and it's a lot of just like, I want to feel better on my bike more so than learn more tricks. You know?
Just like re-up the bike control.
Exactly. Looking at all these kids that I knew when they were learning 360s or bar spins, or like watching some of the kids that I've seen over the years just at various skate parks, and then they've grown up into adults, and I see them just shredding. And that's actually kind of fun to see. Like, I remember when you were like getting frustrated about just like flying out above coping, and now you're just blasting like
just like
7
style
foot
cat,
airs.
yeah. And you're just like, whoa, that's like, it's crazy when you really think about it, like, because like when I try and think back to like what that progression looked like for myself, I'm like, I can't even remember, you know, like I can't remember.
I feel
like
it took so long to learn every single trick.
but like I can't like remember like what each stage was like I remember hitting the ground a lot, but like now like it's just like, it's so like natural. Like every time I get on my bike, I'm just like, I don't even remember not being able to do this. You know, like, isn't that crazy to think about? Like, just being like, I don't like know like how, if I had to, where I would restart right now. Like, that's crazy to think about.
Well, as an adult, it would be impossible.
Yeah.
Like, because you go to these bike parks, like, that's all I ride now is just the dirt jumps at the bike parks. And, like, adults our age trying to learn how to ride, like, the 1 foot little humps, and they're struggling with it. And it's like, yeah, there's no way you can learn.
Yeah, you can't start at this level. Like, because I ride with a bunch of guys that are, like, in their like, you know, 40s to 50s mountain bike guys. They're shredders. They kill it. But they're always like, yeah, I want to go like ride the bike park with you. Should I get a BMX bike? And I'm like, no, do not get a BMX bike. Like, whatever you do, like the smallest bike you should ever get is a cruiser, because you will hate a BMX bike, you know? Like,
You can't go down.
no, you can go up real easy,
Yeah.
because I mean, it's like, it's so natural. But like, if you started riding mountain bikes and you try and like go the other way, like, and you're like a little older, like, that's not going to be fun for you.
Well, and there's no point, right? You can get a
Dirt jumper.
26-inch, deity dirt jumper that feels better than a BMX,
Totally.
if we're honest. But
I mean, yeah, I rode a 22-inch
Nobody
BMX
has
bike.
to know that, Dylan.
Yeah.
Nobody has to know that.
Don't let the
I'm not
secret out
switching.
yet.
I'm not switching, but
Honestly,
The
though,
dirty
like,
secret we all know deep down inside.
yeah,
I do
it
love
does.
going from like my big mountain bike back to my 20-inch bike, like, because there's like so much challenge in switching wheel size.
But
And, like,
only going down.
yeah,
I've hopped on someone's DJ and had every trick that I've ever done on my BMX bike first try.
yeah.
It's not weird. And even after like an hour of riding a mountain bike, going back to your 20 inches, it's so foreign. It feels insane.
It's really weird, but like I feel like every time I go back to my BMX bike, then go back to my mountain bike, I'm like, I feel so stable. Like, because there's times where I'm like on my mountain bike, I'm like, man, I felt really sketchy going fast, but I've been riding it every day this month. Then I get on my BMX bike and go back, and I'm like, oh, this thing's like stable. I can go real fast and like do whatever on this, and like I'm not gonna die.
It's like going from the pool to the hot tub.
Similar.
Sometimes you're like, oh, I'm kind of cooling off in this hot tub. Go roll around in the snow or in the pool, and then you hop back in. You're like, oh, that's right. This is a hot tub.
This feels good. Yeah, for sure. Same, but different.
Yeah. The brain only recognizes where there's a contrast, where there's a difference.
Never heard a bike compared to a hot tub before, but we'll take it, I guess. Breaking new ground on Joy Quota.
Dude, we're trendsetters. Well, and speaking of breaking new ground, tell us about Traction, because this is like really, really awesome.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's been really fun to like kind of reset and like do my own thing. So Traction kind of spurred out of, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Sean Neer. He's like one of the top tier enduro racers. He used to ride BMX back in the day. Like he still rides BMX, but like rode it a little more seriously like 10 years ago. Like Louisville kid, used to hang out over there a bunch. But me and him like bumped into each other on a mountain bike ride a couple years ago, and like I was in coffee and he was like, dude, I got an espresso machine, like a really cool espresso machine. I was like, sweet, man, like let's talk coffee. And like we'd always like chat on Instagram, like, you know, we'd been old friends but like hadn't hung out in a while. And there was some things going down with the coffee company I was at, which is Hotbox Roasters, and basically the company was being sold, and it was either like I stay with the company and like continue with these new owners, or, you know, I went and did my own thing. And at the same time, Sean had hit me up and he's like, hey, what do you think about starting a coffee company? And I was like, yeah, that sounds like that could be really fun. Like I had been thinking about starting my own coffee company with the guy that I was at Hotbox with. His name's Noe. He was our roaster and like good friend of mine. And we'd always joked around about it. And like, you know, when we have a little bit more money, we'll go do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, Sean was kind of like the catalyst for that. And we were like, all right, we sat down and really started talking through what that might look like and came up with the name Traction. And like, really, it's just kind of like gaining traction more or less. You know, like coffee is kind of that thing that helps a lot of people. Like it is the catalyst to get up in the morning or like go climb the mountain or get the stuff done, whatever you need to do. So that's why we went with Traction. And
Yeah, you need a little bit of traction to get some momentum.
yeah, totally. That's like, that is what helps you to move forward, you know? And like, that's what we wanted it to be, is more of like a lifestyle company than just a coffee company. Like we can make all the great coffee in the world, but if there's no like cool story to go along with it, nobody's going to care. So that's kind of been our big focus with this thing, is like, how do we inspire people to really go out and like live your dream? And like, I think coffee is a great way to do that. Like, let's sit down over a cup of coffee and like talk about it, you know? And like, not everything is easy. And like, that's kind of something we've tried to be very transparent with Traction, is like, yeah, this is really hard. You know, like not every day we wake up and like, this is an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
So like when we tell people that, and like we all like, so myself and Noe, we both work full-time jobs on the side of Traction. And then Sean's like on the Enduro World Series or circuit. So he's traveling the world racing. So like we're like up there roasting coffee 9 o'clock at night to like 2 a.m. kind of thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it is one of those things where it's like, yeah, we're excited about this. And if we start to make money off of it, cool. But if not, like we're doing something we care about. So it's more of like a passion-driven project than anything, you know. Obviously the goal is to make it more full-time in the future, but
You don't want to work till 2 a.m. every night? That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, working 2 full-time jobs essentially is not the most fun thing in the world. But like
rough.
my full-time job is pretty cool. Like I don't know if you've ever seen the Crowler, which is like a 32-ounce beer can.
I do.
So I'm the marketing director for that company. So,
sick.
Yeah, it's not like too terrible when I have to go to work.
Yeah.
You know, I still get to work in a cool industry. Like the beer industry is really cool to be a part of, and there's a lot of like takeaways that we can use in the coffee world for it. So coffee, especially like on the specialty level, can kind of be snooty and pretentious. You know, you walk into most coffee shops and you're like, I don't know like what to order here. This is weird. And we're trying to like break that stigma and make it a very comfortable environment and like really talk about really great coffees and why they're great and the people that are making those coffees. Like, you know, nobody really talks about the farmers.
Yeah.
And like what those people go through is crazy.
I can imagine.
Have you traveled to some of the places?
I haven't had the opportunity to yet, but Noe, the guy who does all of our roasting, he's been a few times, and yeah, it's just like the stories that he's told me and like a lot of our other friends, like it's crazy to hear, you know, like what these people are doing I mean, it's a job for them. Like that's how they feed their families and like,
oh, totally.
And it's like, that's the only option that they have.
Yeah.
And so like when somebody says like, oh, this coffee sucks or whatever, it's like, no, do you understand like how hard somebody had to work to get this coffee off of a tree? Like that's crazy, you know, like when you really dumb it down and think about like where that product came from, like somebody picked it off of a tree and like machines don't do any of that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It really is. So it's like, that's another big thing we want to focus on as we grow is like how can we really give back to those communities
That'd be awesome
without like carrying certifications like fair trade and things like that, because really that's just like a feel good stamp.
Yeah.
Gimmick probably.
Yeah
Yeah.
I mean, it's more or less like it kind of gets lost in translation, you know, like
Yeah, you can absolutely be a fair trade organization without ever having to go through all the nonsense
totally
to have the label.
and 9 times out of 10 like if you're going
And you can get the label without actually being a fair trade.
yeah
I imagine you just pay some money.
yeah exactly, and that's what it is like and so a lot of the farmers we deal with, they're so small they can't afford that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's cool to be able to like buy essentially direct from these people. We still have an importer that does, you know, the middle work, but we have relationships at these farm levels, and it's like we know that these people are being taken care of, as opposed to like if it's going through fair trade, like it does get lost in translation. There's not like a super clear paper trail, and like you don't know what the importer went in there and paid these people or if they have a sound relationship. Like
Yeah.
that's sad, you know, like but when we can like call the farmer up and be like, hey man, like we're looking for this. Yeah, we got that. That's pretty cool.
That is cool. Well, when I was in Colombia, it's really interesting because there's so many different grades of coffee that I don't know if people realize. Like there's like in Colombia especially, they can only keep essentially the lowest grade for themselves. So any coffee you actually get in Colombia isn't that great because they have to export
All the
their
good
actually
stuff.
good stuff.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy how
they
that
gotta
works.
make money on the good stuff.
I mean, that's most origins. Like most origins do not keep their best coffee because, like, you know, it's getting purchased super quick. You know, like, I mean, there's places like Jamaica Blue Mountain Coffee is like, in my opinion, it's like not one of the most outstanding coffees in the world, but it sells for like 40 to, you know, hundreds of dollars per pound green, unroasted.
God.
And it's because
Wow.
it's selling to, you know, these like Asian communities that like love coffee, and it drives up that like price. But it's like,
dude,
the locals can't even drink it because it's getting sold. Like this high grade coffee is getting sold away, and like it's crazy when you think about it that way.
You know, in a smaller little farm village someplace, and you can either have some really nice coffee in the morning, or you can have like coffee in the morning, but it's hundreds of dollars different in your bank account. There's no way you're gonna give up that money for having a better cup of coffee.
Yeah, why would you? Like you can barely afford
sense.
to eat food, you know? Like that's crazy to think like people are spending that much on coffee. It really is crazy. Like so when you talk about like different grades of coffee, we just bought a Colombian coffee that was our cost was like $44 a pound, green, unroasted. And it's like that was the most expensive coffee that we've ever bought. And like that's crazy to think about. And like we sold it basically at our cost because we wanted people to like get to experience what that kind of coffee would be like. Like what is the difference in a $20 coffee versus a $40 coffee. We'll try this, it's like it's drastic when you really get to try it. Like the amount of love that goes into it, like, and the amount of sorting, and a lot of that again is done by hand. Like they're looking at these beans and being like throwing them into a different
right, and
pile.
it's crazy. You can tell the difference when there's a lot of shitty coffee versus real coffee just looking at it, but otherwise, like, it would be so hard to be able to like sort that. And, like, I would be interested in doing like a taste test difference wise, actually, because like there's plenty of times where you just like you're at a horrible hotel and you'd have to do it just to wake up, and it's fine at the time, but I bet back to back with something like yours, you'd know instantly, like, this is awful. I've just never done that actual taste test.
Yeah, I always compare it, like, so it makes sense to a lot of people. It's like, drinking like craft beer compared to like a PBR. Like, oh, that has so much more depth and flavor, whereas like a PBR is like pretty flat and linear. It's like kind of a boring flavor, but like you drink something that's like actually crafted and people like think about a little bit more in depth, you're like, oh wow, there's like a lot of complexities compared to this one thing. Not to say one's better than the other though, because it's all relative.
Have their own space and purpose. And
Right, if you're playing flip cup, you gotta use the PBR. Then
exactly.
right.
Well, that's the thing. Like I never say anything's like better than the other because it's all subjective.
Yeah.
What you might think is good is different than what I think is good, and like I think that's another thing like that we're really trying to focus on with this coffee brand is like not telling anybody that what they think is good is bad. Most specialty coffee companies like don't want to ever have dark roast coffee. One of the first things we did was like, well, let's have a dark roast coffee. We want it to be a good one, but like let's have a dark roasted coffee because people want that, and we want people to like enjoy what we're doing. So
yeah, because speaking as an outsider, because I just don't drink coffee, but I spend a lot of time with like my hipstery friends that are all really into coffee, and like some of them have built relationships with like local, roast masters who are like genuinely getting paid gobs of money by these boutique coffee roasting places. And as soon as I walk in the door, I'm just like, I don't like it. I don't like any of this. I feel very uncomfortable. I feel very judged. And then like, God forbid, every single time someone will come up and be like, what are you having? I'm like, I don't drink coffee. I'm so sorry. And they're just like, please leave our store.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I'll be honest, dude. There's a lot of like specialty shops that I've walked into where I like don't even feel comfortable. I'm like, I work in this industry and like I still don't feel comfortable. It's like there's just like, I don't know. It's just like there's something off about it to me. It just feels too exclusive. Like I don't like that like approach to things. Like everybody should feel welcome, and like that's another thing I see a lot in specialty coffee too, though, is like, yeah, everybody's welcome and like we love everybody, and it's like, yeah, but you're excluding a lot of people by like the way you act, or like
we love everybody who thinks and acts exactly like we do. It's kind of a cultural issue in general.
Yeah,
that's
they like to use like big words to describe their flavors and stuff. It's like
stuff like this is a good one. You'll like this one because it tastes like a really good version
like
of this
making
coffee,
everything relatable, like that's what it is, instead of like trying to be like, oh, you won't like this coffee because like, this is kind of a funny story that relates to that. I was down in Austin a couple months ago, and me and my fiance like went to this like pretty cool specialty shop that we had found that we put on like our little itinerary, and we get there and I was like, oh sweet, they had a geisha, which is like a pretty expensive variety. It's like it was one of the most like highly regarded varieties in coffee for a long time. Still is actually. And so I see it on the menu and it was like, it was like a $20 cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So like expensive, right? And I was like, oh, I'll do that geisha. And the guy kind of looked at me. He's like, are you sure you want that? It's $20.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I know what it is. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't trying to be like a dick to the guy, but it's like, why are you like kind of like being kind of slanderish to me, like saying like, oh, you don't know what that is, or you can't afford it, or something, like just like the mentality or like the attitude he had towards me. Are you sure you want that? It's $20.
Yeah, especially because my first thought would be, I would hope people don't know what it is, right? Like if I knew that something was going to just blow the pants off of someone as soon as they tried it, I would be constantly
you should be like, dude, that
trying to
coffee's
push it
awesome,
on people, be like,
like,
hey, dude, I recognize that's a $20 cup. It's incredible. If you like this kind, get after it.
As the owner of the business, that's who you would want working for you, is someone like this.
Exactly.
Because that would be
That's
so
weird.
fun. Like someone unassumingly, like they've drank nothing but like the worst coffee ever, and they walk in and they're like, you know what, one time I'm going to splurge. I'll get the $20 cup.
Mhm.
And then they sip it and they're just like floored. That'd be the funnest thing to watch.
Totally. Yeah. It's
If you're
like
into
a
it,
total
you're like,
game changer.
You're understanding why I love this thing. Like,
Yep. Yeah, yeah. Now you know why I work here and like as a barista kind of
Yeah.
thing. But like, yeah, it's like I experience that a lot in coffee where people are kind of just like, or like, you know, what espressos are you pulling? And they're just like, well, and like kind of explain it. And you're just like, or like, what are you excited about? And they're like not happy to explain to you like what they're excited about. It's like, then why are you here? Like, go do something else. Like, this should be something you should be excited about. Like, again, it goes back to like, think about the people that are like creating this product at a farm level.
yeah.
Like, they work so hard not for you to stand here and like be dissatisfied telling me about how cool this thing is.
Yeah, being cool is kind of. I've always had this mentality of like being cool oftentimes doesn't lead to being happy.
Yep.
Like too many people, especially in today's culture, at least in my opinion, when I look at Instagram and Facebook, everyone is so exhausting because I see everyone trying so hard to be cool and it looks exhausting. I would much rather be full of joy and happy and silly and a knucklehead every single time because it takes no effort.
Mm-hmm.
It's so fun to
Well,
be authentic and not worry about how cool you look every time. Every time. 10 out of 10.
Yep. Yeah, there's so many times where I like look like when you start looking in like the social media aspect of life or like all that kind of crazy stuff, like I always look at it, it's like there's really two kind of people out there. There's the people that like create these trends and then the people that follow them. And like, I don't know, like I've never wanted to be somebody that like, it's like, oh yeah, I want to be like that. It's like, I just want to do my own thing. That sounds fun. And like, if anybody else thinks that's cool, let's do it. But like, I'm never like wanted to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy those shoes because I want to post a picture on Instagram with them on, you know, or like whatever it is, like whatever you're into. It's like, it's just crazy to me. Like,
Do people do that, I guess?
Oh,
yeah,
for sure.
dude, like
guess
that.
I'm
I mean, but like,
Absolutely.
I guess that's kind of the point of like these
Influencers. Yeah. That's literally what it is.
$500 shoes or something. I don't.
but I think that's like the cool thing of us like all having this background in BMX. I think it like creates like an artist in every one of us where it's like, yeah, we want to be original. Like nobody looks at like somebody and like, oh, I want to do a moto whip just like them. And like study
Unless
that
it's
and
Ricky
like
Carmichael, and then you absolutely do.
totally, but like nobody can. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like that's the cool thing about it. Like you can try to imitate something so much in like any sort of like these action sports realms, and like you can't ever look like somebody else.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you would just be a good imitation of someone else instead of being the best representation of yourself.
Totally. And like the people that go the furthest are the ones that are very unique. You know, like when Chris Fox came out of nowhere, like Chris Fox was doing stuff that nobody had ever seen before. Like,
Yeah.
this man is like sprinting in a bowl. Nobody had ever done that before.
I
And it's
just
like-
watched his ad for his podcast that just went out on, I think, the Rollback or something.
Oh, the
No,
Gap
Den-
at Woodward.
Yeah.
Dude.
Genesis.
Yeah, on Dennis's, yeah. And he, like, no one else in the world could do that,
No.
literally. And, like, the way how he, like, specifically you can see him, like, I know I'm not going to clear this, so I'm
And do,
going
like,
to nose
nose-
manual land. And, like, yeah, it was, I remember I met him dropping Dylan off to go meet Joey and Matt because he was going to go spend some time out in Cali, and we dropped him off in the middle of a road trip, and Chris was with us. And I remember meeting this guy and immediately being like, wow, this guy's so cool. And then he starts talking about, like, yeah, I used to be, like, an Olympic racer or whatever, but, like, I don't know, I just have fun at a skate park. And I was like, well, this guy's going to blow up because anyone who's good at racing has a lot of freestyle potential. And then I remember Dylan making a video of him and actually watching him ride, and I was like,
That video was so sick.
it wasn't
too.
anything like I expected.
Yeah.
I expected him to be doing a lot of things, but none of it was going 90 miles an hour around a bowl corner. Like, it was so cool. And none of it was all the crazy tricks. It was literally just how impressive can a person be when it comes to bike control?
If I remember that particular one right, I think he was more into like the tech stuff back then. He was
like the
a lot
pedal
of foot
stalls
jams.
and foot jams.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
But every now and again, there'd be a clip of him roasting
Exactly.
through a
Yeah,
wall,
it
and you're
was-
like,
But it was still like, it's so cool, like taking it back to that, like he was an artist, like being his own thing. And like he came into this thing that was like a lot of people were doing the same kind of stuff. And like there was like a style of BMX, and he kind of like rewrote what that was.
And now there's an entire contest series based on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and like, and then you look at like all these guys, and there's like, they're all doing the same kind of stuff, but the flair is also different. You know, like nobody's doing anything like the other person. Like, oh, I want to do a tabletop like so-and-so. Everybody has their own like style to it. And I think that's the coolest thing about like BMX, and then taking that into other aspects of life. And then you can be like, oh yeah, I guess I can like do this my own way or put my own spin on it. And like, that's fun to like relate things that way.
absolutely. Well, like, I guess going back to like life lessons that BMX has taught us, which we could talk for hours, but like, there wasn't any, like, the whole like being cool thing, like, it wasn't even an option for us as kids because bikes were so expensive, and it was really hard to get parts. So it was like, looks like I'm using so-and-so's old bent handlebars because I just want to ride.
Yeah, you have
It
like
was
a
all
mixed
about-
match, like looks like crazy, like
It was-
Easter egg colors. You're just like, what is going on here,
Yeah.
man? Like,
It was all about just, I want to ride, whatever it takes to go ride.
No, but
And-
there was still some like trying to be cool. I remember like painting my bike a different
Yeah.
color like every month or two.
Totally.
Like, trying to have like
A
cool,
dialed
like,
looking
nice
bike.
looking bike. Yeah.
I'll never forget the first time like I built a bike like pretty much from scratch. You know, it's like getting to pick like what colors everything was, and it was like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. And like now every time I like build a new bike, I like trying to make like an art project out of it. You know, like
Yeah.
how can I make this like my own thing? Not even really, I guess, to be cool, but just like how can I make it mine? Like leave my mark on it. And like I think that's such a fun thing to do. You know.
So I guess what's Traction really committed to leave their mark, right? Like, because it sounds like you're really pushing to be unique in a very saturated market, and I think you have a cool angle of really trying to make it a really nice coffee for every person instead of trying to make it a really nice coffee for a really
Like
nice
a niche group.
Yeah, like
yeah.
it's
Yeah, I mean, we just kind of really like want to tell like our friends' stories, I guess, is kind of a big thing that we really want to start doing more now than anything. Is like we have so many friends that have done cool things, like, and you know, a lot of people say, oh, I wish I could do something like that or whatever. It's like through these different people, like we can tell, like, you know, it is through hard work or whatever, like that you get to do what you want to do. Like, so whether you want to be like an ultra athlete or a professional BMX rider or a businessman, like just work really hard at it and like enjoy the hardships. And I think we can use this like basically platform that we're building through Traction to kind of tell those stories and create that lifestyle. You know, like we want it to be very authentic. I hate the word authentic, but we want it to be that. You know, like I hate saying that because it's such a buzzword.
yeah,
But
maybe just honest.
yeah. And like talking to people about like, you know, we don't want it to be like sunshine and rainbows all the time because it's not. Like if we have a bad day or like whatever, we're going through like building permits or something, like we'll tell people, yeah, this is hard, you know, so
Yeah.
people don't expect, oh, I can just go start a business and this is going to be easy. You know, like 99% of it is hard. And then there's like these little like shimmers of like fun. So like just
Yeah.
being honest about it and like open. And I think that's something that's like very important to the three of us, me, Sean, and Noe, like with this brand. And again, it's like we're buying coffees that we're excited about and sharing them with people and like in an unpretentious way, I
Yeah.
guess is the best way to say that.
Yeah, just an approachable way.
Mm-hmm.
Where?
What made you so passionate about coffee?
Ooh, what a good question.
That's a crazy one, man. So I didn't like actually drink coffee at all until I was like 18 or 19. And I was like traveling a bunch, just like I traveled a bunch growing up riding bikes, like with racing,
Yeah.
like all over the country. And then I started riding freestyle and started traveling with that and like, you know, just drinking energy drinks all the time. Like I still drink energy drinks every now and then, but it was like one of those things of like trying to find a way out of sugary energy drinks, more or less. And I started dating the girl who's now my fiance. She worked at Starbucks. So that was kind of like my like gateway into it, you know? And so like I would go visit her at Starbucks all the time.
Might as well buy something. I'm here.
No, she would just give it to me for free. So she'd make me drinks, and it'd just be like, you know, like sugary frappuccinos and like crap like that. And like, but it's like it started my coffee journey. And it was like, you know, like I would be like, oh, that's good. And like then I would have a latte like a couple months down the road, and like then I'd be traveling and like be at a cool coffee shop and like, oh, like I'll take a latte. And like I was like, oh, there's like a pretty leaf in this one. Like somebody made a leaf in the milk. Like that's crazy.
Pretty cool. The artwork is insane.
You know, like, and then I knew nothing about it, but I was like, oh, this tastes really good. Why does this taste different than the Starbucks one? And then I like really started kind of going down that rabbit hole of like, oh, like the origin of the coffee and like the process of the coffee is like different. And like I'm always been the kind of person where like if I'm gonna do something, like I want to be the best at it. Like I want to learn everything there is to learn about it. And like I guess that can be a downfall of mine at some points, but like with coffee, I was like, I just want to learn everything I can. And so I like started getting super into it. And at the same time, I started writing for Reeb, which is the guy who founded Oscar Blues. It's his like bike company. And I was at the brewery one day. I found out he had this big pink ridiculous car. So Big Boy from Outkast.
Yeah.
It's his old car. So it's on 32-inch spinners, like this That's crazy hilarious. Pink, like it has like 12 TVs, like all these subwoofers. And then I found out he had it. And I was like, damn, that's really cool. I want to jump over it. So, you know, we put it at the loading dock and I get ready to jump over it. And I look over, like I jump over it, do whatever. And after I'm done, I'm talking to Dale. Excuse me. And there's a coffee roaster in the corner. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. You guys are roasting coffee. And he's like, yeah, like we started this brand. It was Cano beans at the time. So like tying back into the Oscar Blues thing.
I actually like that.
Yeah,
That's pretty funny.
And they were doing it in the Crowler.
Yeah, that was going to be my question earlier when you talked about the Crowler.
So it's kind of funny that it's like a segue into where I'm at now. But like, yeah, it was the first coffee beans in a Crowler can. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And he's like, what do you know about coffee? And we kind of shot the shit back and forth. And that was that. And a couple months go by and this guy, Derek, started working for Cano Beans. And I started talking to him and he's like, do you want to ride for the coffee company? I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. And during that time, we were like kind of going back and forth. And he's like, yeah, I think we're going to rebrand it into being its like own brand. Or like aside from Oscar Blues. Because it was never owned by Oscar Blues.
Yeah.
And I was like, that sounds cool. He's like, what do you think we should call it? So, you know, we're kind of going back and forth. And the Hotbox Roasters name came up. And I'm still not even working for the company yet. And that's like where like I was like, oh, the coffee industry is really cool. And at this point in my life, I'm still like, I had no idea what I wanted to do. You know, I was like working like odd and end crazy jobs. Like I worked for Morgan Stanley at one point, and like then I worked for TurboTax, like these like really weird like tech support jobs, and like never knew what I wanted to do other than ride a bike, you know. And yeah. I found that coffee like niche, and I was like, oh, this is cool. People can like actually make money doing this. Let's do it. And kind of jumped in head first because I got the opportunity at Hotbox, and yeah, spent 3.5 years there, I think.
Yeah.
It was crazy, man.
I feel like that's a fun thing. As a kid, I remember not knowing if I could ever fall in love with something the way I fell in love with BMX.
Mm-hmm.
And like now that all of my BMX friends were all getting older, like it's so fun to have that moment again.
It's like an aha moment. Yeah.
So head over heels in love with BMX. Immediately, it was just no breaks.
Yep.
And I remember thinking, like, this could be a problem. Like, I might not ever find a way out of having this one insane passion of mine.
Totally.
That's for sure going to continuously hurt me.
Yeah.
And, like, it's dangerous. Like, I'm never going to find a passion that is, like, a real moneymaker or, like, any way to support myself, and I'm just, what happens when I'm 50? What happens?
Yeah.
Like something like that.
Yeah, this is like not a sustainable way for me to make a living. I saw that there
was an end, and I was like, I don't know if it's possible to love something as much as I love BMX. And then I remember the very first podcast we did. that same rush of like, it's here. Like, finally, it makes sense.
That's
like,
so cool. Yeah, it's like a good feeling when you find that, and it's like, I always feel bad when I talk to people where they're like, there's like nothing I'm really like that passionate about, or like I want a hobby to be passionate about, and I'm like sometimes I wish that I could be like looking for that, because I'm like, I have too many things that I'm like so passionate about now, where it's like I just kind of like want to tone it back and be able to focus on certain things, like because when I found coffee, like for the longest time it was like very difficult for me, like I guess coffee and business for that matter, like it was really hard for me to be like, bikes aren't my priority anymore. You know, like that was a hard thing for me to step back and be like, BMX is like not like, even still like now I like struggle with it to be like, I want to be like so good at it still. I'm like, but it's like, that's not the priority for me anymore. It's like, I have a company and like I have things that I want to do with it. And like, that's cool to be able to be like, all right, bikes are going to be there, but I want to focus on this thing.
Yeah, it's not putting the bike down, but it's maybe just riding differently. Like, I definitely feel that way now, where I'm like, my goal is to just kind of scare myself one time during the session. Whether it's I want to try and do a long ice pick stall, or whether, like, it doesn't have to be something crazy, because it's been so long since I've been, like, really dialed in, where it's so easy to get sucked in. Like, I'm riding with Dawson, who, like, I remember teaching tricks to, and now he's just running circles around everyone. And I get real competitive, and I'm like, I should do something crazy. And then real quick being like, that actually isn't my priority while I'm riding anymore.
Yeah.
Like, now it's all about
it's hard to be okay
filling
with that.
the joy quota instead of being the best person at the skate park.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, because I am a pretty competitive person by nature, and like, that was like one of the hardest things I think over the last few years for me to be like, all right, like, where are your priorities, and like, how do you like step back from being so infatuated with BMX and like be okay with that not being like,
being okay with not being as good as you were.
Yeah, or just like not being as in love with it as I once was. You know, like in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, I still love BMX, and like I want it to be my priority, and like, like there's so many nights that I lay in bed and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this, this, and this, and like I get to the skate park and I'm like, like I'm not even that into riding my bike right now. Like I'm thinking about so many other things, and it's like, but it was like, it took me up until like this year to realize it's like, oh, I don't have to like force myself to ride my bike, and then that made me start to enjoy riding my bike more.
Well, yeah, because love and priority are two completely different things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can still love it. Like, we all will love BMX for the rest of our lives, but it's not going to be a priority for any of us. So that's just the way it is. Like,
the priority is to get on the bike, but not to specifically do anything on it.
Yes. As long as we can enjoy being on the bike.
Totally. Well, and like even sometimes like there's times where I'm like just like not even interested in touching my bike. And like it was a long time for me to be like, I'm cool with that. Like, and then when I do get back on my bike, I'm like so much more excited about it. But if I like force myself to get on my bike sometimes and I'm like just not feeling it, it's like kind of like the fire has died a little bit. But if I like give it some time and let it feel like natural, and then I get on my bike, I'm like, oh, this is what I want it to feel like, instead of like forcing it. Like, you better do this, or you better like it. Like, I don't know. I feel like that's like a hard thing to accept, like to be like, oh, I've kind of moved on to something else. And like, but every time I get on my bike and it's not forced, if it's like, I don't want to say convenient, but if it's like, I'm feeling it today.
Up naturally.
Yeah. I'm like, I have a great session and like I'm having fun, and I'm not like, oh, that I put my foot down on that trick and now I'm pissed and like putting my bike on my roof of my car and leaving. Like I hate that feeling of being like so frustrated of riding my bike. Like, there's still those sessions, but yeah.
Yeah, it is a weird thing to like be able to, I guess, kind of give yourself the grace of like, I don't have to feel guilty that I didn't want to ride my bike this week, or like that it never even crossed my mind.
Yeah.
It almost feels like you're like cheating on someone. You're like, oh God,
totally.
Like I can't believe I didn't think of you. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, when you like walk past it in your garage and you're like, oh man, like like those feelings did go through me a lot, where I'm like, why am I not excited? Like, what's wrong with me? But I'm like, oh, like I'm excited about like growing this business, or like meeting new people, or whatever it might be at the time. Like,
I'm excited
just
about
being present in the moment instead of being like, oh, I should be excited about my bike. Not to say that I don't still love my bike and like riding, like that's always going to be like a huge outlet and like a massive part of my life. But for so long, that was like all that I did. You know? And it's hard to like really take a step back and be like, oh, that like there's other things going on.
I like to picture it almost like just the flow of energy that you have for projects. I like to picture it as like if you take, let's say, your garden hose and you hook it up to one hose and then it's just flowing out that one hose. That's us first when we're kids. Like all we had was BMX. That's the only outlet for all of this creative energy and all this passion. And then as you get older, you start adding teas and forks into the hose. So then it's like, well, now it's split into two hoses because coffee. And then it's like, oh, well, actually, I really love craft brewing. And then, oh, it turns out I love mountain biking. And then it turns out that, oh, gosh, I really love this chick and I'm going to get married. And then all of a sudden, the same amount of water has to come out of a lot of different hoses.
It's hard to shut those off sometimes.
And recognizing like, oh, sometimes like it's okay, it's natural that the flow is actually less in certain areas because you're really focused on wherever the water's going, like maybe the front yard so I can go water some plants instead of the backyard where actually everything's pretty healthy and right now we're just trying to grow a little garden out front, and then later on it'll change to something else and change. But you never get rid of the hoses. You just get to kind of play with the valves and adjust where the flow goes.
No, I do. I can vibe with that. Like it's always just like about being present. I think like that's the most important part about life. And like the older I've gotten, that's like something that I've really realized. Like everybody's always said like, oh, life's a balance. It's like, no, that's bullshit. Like you can't balance life. You just have to be present with where you're at and like just aware of like what do you want to do and like who do you want to be around. Like you can't like think about like all the stuff we all have going on. Like it's so hard to balance all of that. Like it's nearly impossible, right? Like it's just going from one place to another and making sure you're present while you're there. Like there's no I just really don't think that there's like a such thing as like balance.
Yeah.
That's like really tough to like,
I like that.
Like you can't say like, I'm going to spend 25% of my time with my lady and 25% of my time riding my bike and 50%. Like it just doesn't work that way. It's just being present in those moments and like trying your hardest to be present and like accomplish goals while you're doing each of those things.
Yeah. I like to think of balance as, let's say at one end of the scale, there's the past, one end is the future. If you're being present by virtue of that, you're in the center point. You're in balance.
Yeah.
Like as soon as you get out of that, you can't realistically get any of it done. Like you said, the idea of like your work life versus home life versus all those things, like it's constantly evolving. The only way to stay at the center of mass is to be in the present.
Yep.
The only way to do that.
Well, and I like talk to so many people who like schedule their whole lives out and like they're not like sporadic, and it's like, dude, that sounds miserable to me. Like I love being able to kind of do whatever I want whenever I want to, even though I have a lot of things going on. I'm not like, oh, I'm waking up at this set time and I'm eating breakfast at this set time. And like, like I have so many friends that are just like, I have to like hang out with my girlfriend 3 days a week or whatever it is. And it's like, dude, like that is not, I feel like that's just not healthy. It's like, just be where you are and like live that moment to the fullest and move on. And like surround yourself with people that are okay with that.
My only thing with that though is, like we talked about in the beginning, of these habits that will benefit you, such as stretching. It's very hard to balance like spontaneity with structure.
Yeah.
Like you need to, for me at least, I need to like wake up not at a certain time, but
there's a very specific routine.
I need the routine of like having the coffee and then doing the stretches and then getting into the day. But I also need the spontaneity.
Yeah.
And so that's the balance of, for me at least, is like the routine that will help me for the future with the spontaneity of like, I don't know what's happening today, so I'm excited and I have a reason to get out of bed.
Totally. No, and I think that's a good way to look at it though, of like saying like my whole life isn't like this one routine every day. You know, like it's not like you're not like, oh yeah, I'm going to wake up, go to work. The weekends are only for fun.
Yeah.
You know, like there's so many people that get into that groove of like doing the same thing for 40 years and then they wake up and they're 60 years old and they're just like, wait, I didn't do anything I wanted to for the last 60 years because I was in this routine and I said, oh, tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, like that's where I think like that balance stuff is like just BS. Like just go do what you want to do. You can do whatever you want to do. That's the cool thing about life. Nobody's like telling you no.
Yeah.
I like the idea of, because I lean very far towards no boundaries, no routine, no anything. Like if my day goes perfectly, I won't have a clue about any of it the whole time because I just love the adventure that is in surprise. But I'm growing and learning, and I've spent a lot of time with people who are a lot more regimented because that's just where their comfort is versus I feel a lot more comfortable
being loose
because I feel flexible and agile versus other people. Because I don't think there is a right or wrong. I think the balance, or like to not use the word balance, the fine line to walk is where can you set the fence so that your area to play in is the right size for you, right? Like learning, okay, Allie and I are really committed to our marriage and all these things. That means that certain things have to happen.
Yep.
How can we work that in where we both feel flexible enough, where we're both still very committed to making this happen and both still very accountable for it. So like within 2 weeks, we have a date night. It doesn't matter when in those 14 days it happens. A perfect world comes out of nowhere and we're like, oh, we're both free tonight. Boom. There it is.
Let's do it. Yep.
We're excited about it because we get to like, it feels natural instead of, well, every Wednesday is date night. And then it's like, oh, well, that for me, no dice versus for other people, it's like, man, my life is crazy. We have kids. We have all these things going. If we don't protect this little sacred moment of we have to have date nights and remember to date each other, we're not going to stay married.
Yep.
And so it actually protects the spontaneity and it protects the freedom of like, we don't have to know what we're doing, but we know
you're doing something.
Wednesday is for us.
Yeah.
So it's building the playpen in the right place and in the right space, in the right size, so that it actually frees you up to play more freely.
Yeah.
And be more wild and imaginative and creative. You'll know when that's off because it'll start feeling constricting. Versus you should be excited about the boundaries you're setting.
Totally.
Like, oh man, I can't wait to say no to that because it means I get to do this. That's a really healthy boundary and a really healthy routine.
Totally. Yeah, like I think that's something that I've learned like the older I've gotten is being able to say no to things. You know, like I know I have like a priority that trumps that or whatever it is, you know, like that's a hard thing. Like as you like realize that you're becoming an adult, you're like, oh, like, you know, I have a priority, and like being able to go out and do something with your friends might not be that. Like that's a hard thing right there in and of itself, you know, but like I think that like being spontaneous piece is like, or schedule, like it's all just about how your brain works. You know, like everybody's so different. So like there's not like you said, there's not like a set thing for one person.
Yeah, I mean, Allie's dad is a very regimented person, but because of all of those regiments, like he literally will eat 3 cookies on Saturday. That's his favorite routine. He wakes up and he has like a coffee and he has his 3 Chips Ahoy and no more than 3 Chips Ahoy.
That's
no
impressive.
Less. And he has all this crazy discipline to do the stretches every day and all this stuff. But because of that, he feels really in control of himself. And he has extra time to do this because he's not wasting it snacking all morning or like whatever it is. Like it actually frees him up to go be a better version of himself versus all 3 of our faces when I said he has exactly this.
I'm just like, I'm about to eat the whole box of cookies. If the cookies are coming out, they're gone, dude.
It stops when there are no more cookies. Yeah.
Like every time I'm like at the grocery store and I'm like, I should buy some Oreos, you know, like there's a new flavor of Oreos. Yeah. And my fiance's always like, nah, like don't get the Oreos. And I'm just like, it's too late. Like I looked at them, you know, like, and I take them home and they're gone, dude. And I'm like, there is something wrong with me. Like
it's that impulse control that I think we both struggle with a lot.
It's hard, man.
Yeah.
See, for me, it's very easy to just not buy the cookies and then not eat them.
If I'm real good at not buying them, but if they are there, I have zero self-control.
Yeah.
Like,
If they're sitting on my counter,
Oh,
I'm
what's
just like,
one more?
Yeah.
Oh, what's
Yeah.
more? Yeah. We're all like that. Like
Like
if they're
I-
there, then yeah, of course.
It's a slippery slope, man.
I remember I house sat once for Zach Lewis, and I had been real good. I was like in this really serious phase of like eating healthy in my life at the time, and I show up and they have a freaking candy jar just out and open, and they get home and Zach's first text was like, did you seriously wolf down the entire half gallon of candy jar? And I was like, I am very ashamed to admit that I didn't even make it half the week. It was there, and like I would get up off the couch to go to the bathroom and like, oh, there's the candy jar.
Like, yeah, I can see you like the first
Yeah,
time you
yeah.
like walk past it, you're like, I'm not touching that, and then you like walk back from the bathroom, you're like, all right, what's one piece, and like
Yeah.
the second you get like a taste of it, it's like downhill from there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the nature of sugar, right? It's
Mhm.
the most addicting thing.
It's
you could ever
crazy,
have.
man.
Yeah.
I mean, I always like when I try and like get into the routine of like eating good and I'm like running or riding a lot, and then like you slip up a little bit and you're just like, all right, pizza every night now, or tacos or whatever it is, and you're just like, dude, like it's crazy how that happens. And I think that goes back to that thing I was saying about like balance. It's like it's just like whatever's happening and like just being like okay with that.
When it rains, it pours.
Yeah, because like I mean, so many people are so hard on themselves, like where they're like in a diet or whatever, and they do eat a pizza or a piece of pizza, and they're like, oh my god, my diet's ruined. It's like, no, like you have to like be able. It's just ebbs and flows. Like these things happen.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that's just a really good metaphor for anything is expect it to ebb and flow.
Yeah.
No matter what it is that you're doing. Like if it's a passion project, expect that there are going to be days where you're less passionate about it and you're
And be
mostly
okay
frustrated.
with that.
And expect it and be okay with it versus I think people expect everything to be A plus B equals C every single time versus
Yeah.
like sometimes you're not even working with letters. Sometimes it's numbers. Sometimes it's the actual equation is changing all the time because new things are being added and taken out. And
Well, and like when you say like passion project, that like kind of makes me think of like, when you say like it should be like people think it's going to be A, B equals C. It's like, it's never that, I don't think, like especially with these kind of things. Like, and I think it kind of goes back to like the BMX thing again. It's like there's so much beauty in like the struggle of all of it. Like when I think back to like when I had the most fun riding my bike, it was when I was like learning tricks and like falling down and like
hands
that's
down.
like the most fun time of riding BMX for me. And like same thing with like business. It's like when I'm messing up, it's like in the moment you're like, man, this sucks. Like I wish this wasn't happening. And then like there's something cool that comes of it, but like when you look back, like the most memorable times are the hardest times.
Yeah.
And they're like really cool when you look back on them. But in the moment, you're like, this sucks. This is the worst thing. Why am I doing this? Like, and I think like I always, like I said, relate that back to riding a bike where it's like, I remember trying to learn bar spins, and like you'd land one and then fall on 30. And you're like, you're so mad about it. Like, why am I even doing this? And now it's like whenever I do a bar spin, it's just like, that's
like
easy.
it has to be something special where I even feel an emotion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I actually just threw out the handlebars I learned bar spins with because I was so emotionally attached to them. Because they were these holy crossbars.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they literally, I still have scars on my hand because I would catch the handlebars where they had drilled holes through the crossbar and cheese grate my hands and then just ride with like bloodied, scabbed hands like, I must learn this.
But you know what I mean? But like when you like think back on it, it's like that was
Nothing
fun.
but joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like in the moment, it sucks. And like same thing with like passion projects or even just like work for that matter. It's like the things that are hard are like usually the most fun things, like in hindsight. In the moment, they suck, but like, and then like when you're on those mountaintops, like you don't even really think about those things ever again, other than when you're there.
Yeah.
So that is becoming a real adult, I think, is like knowing that in the moment it sucks, but trying to appreciate it anyway.
I mean, that's the joy quota. We literally just had a podcast about this with Dylan and I of like, even looking back at shredding my hands on those handlebars, full joy the whole time. Full joy, full throttle the whole time. And I think that's the difference between like happiness and joy is like people expect a passion project to create happiness, which will be a byproduct sometimes.
Yeah.
Versus being like, no, I want to create joy, so I'm going to work on something I'm passionate about, knowing that I'm going to probably be frustrated, but I'm going to feel joy that I'm working on something I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
Instead of
Well, and I think that's just
confused.
life in general too. Like, you know, like a lot of times, like you don't always have to be happy, and a lot of times you're probably not going to be. But
Yeah.
like when you are, it's like, oh, this is really cool. This is like why there are like bad days.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's why there are usually more bad days than good days. So like the good days are really good. Like that's cool. Like when you start to like realize that, like if every day was a good day, you would never have a good day.
Yeah.
Well, learning to appreciate that is like the difference between being depressed and being a normal human.
Yeah,
Or a happy human.
for sure. Yeah, like
Joyful human.
Joyful human. There we
like
go.
it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
well, like I think using those like bad days, or like if you do find yourself in a depressed place, like using that as the catalyst to like launch yourself forward. Like, how do I get myself out of this thing? You know, like because it's a very easy thing to be like bummed out. Like that's I find myself in that place a lot where it's like the highs are really high and like the lows are really low, and like when you get out of that, it's like holy crap. Like I like if you don't stop working hard through all of that stuff, like you get out of it a lot quicker. But the second you like stop for a second, you're just like, ah, this sucks. Then it sucks. It like actually sucks, you know? But
Yeah.
like
You've killed the momentum.
Yeah.
You've lost traction.
as long as you
Boom!
boom,
boom,
you gotta
boom.
keep gaining traction, man.
Yeah.
You know, as long as you stay on the gas, like generally like things are gonna be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Even if they aren't in the moment.
And I feel like that is a common theme on this podcast that maybe people don't necessarily realize. Like, the roller coaster is okay.
Mhm.
And even myself, I don't realize this. Like, I feel like when I'm going down, it's like, this is the end of the world.
The
And it's
downhill
not.
parts are what create enough momentum so that you can get back up.
Yeah, it's just being mindful of being like, all right, I'm gonna be in this valley soon. Like I need to go fast enough on this downhill to get
Yeah,
back
I need
up.
to pump the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I now that I've gotten more into mountain biking and like started riding single speed mountain bikes for a while, and like I've always related it back to that momentum piece. Is like, if you want to get up that hill, like you have to hit it with some speed and some momentum, and like sometimes you don't, and you have to get off and walk, and like that's okay. You know, like you're still gonna get to the top as long as you keep going. But if you stop and like sit down, you're like, oh, this is miserable. Why am I doing this? Like you can like, again, it goes back to life. Like,
Well, and then once you stop, it becomes much easier to start going down.
Yeah,
right?
you
You
turn
get
around and be
halfway
like,
up and
nah.
you stop, and then the metaphor is your muscles cramp up and you're tired and you're all stiff all of a sudden after a 10-minute rest. You're like, I could just not pedal and go all the way back down, right? Instead of if you just keep pushing, even if it's just a step at a time, you'll at least keep going.
Yeah, just keeping like I guess your eyes on the prize and like the momentum to move forward. Like I think that's a very like good skill to learn, is just staying just set on where you're going.
Yeah.
And like and having a place to go. Like if you don't know where you're going, just like pick something that you want to do. You know, even if it's something that's like so like small. I don't know. Like I want to be good at making pizzas. Like cool, get good at making pizzas and like just have like a goal all the time. I think is like something important to like be in a good mood, I guess. I don't know.
Totally.
Going back to balance, you have to be looking at something stationary to keep your balance the best. You have to have a goal. You have to have your eyes on something, or else it's really easy to start falling off that line that you're trying to walk.
Yep. Yeah, and if you don't have a goal, then it's like, not to like say it in like a bad way or anything, but it's like, why are you waking up? Like you want to like just keep going, you know, like wake up and like have that goal and say like, I'm going to work towards that. Even if it's just a little bit every day. It's like I said, it can be something as simple as like, just simple.
Yeah,
Like,
it's different for everyone.
yeah, it doesn't matter what that goal is. It could be so simple, and like just having that, like just write it down and go for it.
Yeah. Well, heck yeah. Well, we like to usually end on the same question. It's just a fun little thing. This is just for you. This isn't for anyone but you. It'll be on there, but like it doesn't have to be a good piece of story or anything. But what comes to mind when you think of joy? Like really, when you take a moment and you just, joy. What's the first thing that comes to mind?
That's a tough one, man. That's crazy. I don't know. I think again, it just goes back for me, just being present in the moment and like not like trying to do anything other than just be myself. I think that's like what joy is for me, is like really just being like as genuine as I can, as in the moment, and I guess real. You know, like that was something that it's taken me a long time to figure that out. But like I really just like showing up and like not if I'm in a good mood or a bad mood, like that's just who I am. That's what makes me happy, and like not trying to impress anybody ever or whatever it is. It's just like I'm gonna talk about what's on my mind, and if you don't like it, you don't like it. And yeah, that's just joy to me, I guess. Just being present.
Heck yeah.
Perfect. I mean, that's honest. We don't like the word authentic. We like the word honest.
Yeah. I mean, I hate that word authentic just because it has become such a buzzword. You know, like
It's
everybody.
the new synergy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things that people say because they want you to like believe their bullshit. Yeah, this is very authentic. It's like, no, like authentic is not having to say that word. It's a feeling. You know, like you feel authenticity. You don't tell somebody that you're authentic. That's not how that works.
Same as cool, like we talked about in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, I'm cool, guys. Like me.
Yeah.
Look at
I'm
me.
authentic.
Look at how I'm doing all the right things. It's like either you're cool or you're not. You either have that gene or you don't. You got the square jaw or you don't. Just be you.
Yeah, and that's cool. You know what I mean? Like that's something else that like took me a long time to figure out, is just be yourself, and that's like the coolest cool that you can be. Like
nothing is more attractive to the human spirit than genuine. Like if it's genuine and it's real, then everyone will be attracted to you. Not in like a physical way necessarily, but like just the right people will show up.
Yep.
And
the
wrong
right
people
things
will start
happen.
weeding themselves out, and real quickly you'll notice a difference in your life just from the simple fact of being genuine, being you.
Well, I think it just kind of goes back to that, like, it's like destiny, really. You know, it's like whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. So just like be who you are, and like don't try and like fake something, because people, especially in the world we live in now, like it's gonna get sniffed out really quick. You know, I think that is kind of like the beauty of the internet. You know, like you can fake it, but if I meet you in person, I can tell that you're full of it.
Yeah.
You know, like there's so many people that I meet where I'm like, oh, that person seems so awesome. You know, I've met them on Instagram or whatever, talked to them there, and like meet them in person finally, and I'm like, that was not what I expected. Like I hate that. That sucks. You know, and it's like, oh, you were just like, this is a persona that you've created, and like you're not that in real life. Like that's heartbreaking to me.
The thing with that is I don't necessarily know if it's an on purpose thing. Like now it's almost like subconsciously like they're trying to be cool without even trying.
Yeah, you
kind of have to.
Real quick. Like, you get addicted to the little hearts at the bottom of your Instagram feed real quick. It doesn't matter who you are. And
did you see they're trying to do away with that actually?
Not being able to see how many likes you have?
Yep, they're trying to get rid of the function that shows how many followers you have and how many likes you have. They're betaing it in Canada right now, I think.
That changes the game real big.
That would be a very fascinating little experiment.
I'm excited to see like what kind of data comes out of that, because it is one of those things where it's like, are people going to start behaving differently? You know, are people going to start? Are they going to stop posting? Like, how is that going to work? Or
and it changes the business world pretty dramatically too. That essentially wipes out like a decent sized marketing option.
I don't agree.
Well, like you as the poster can see like the analytics and how many people are liking it.
Oh, but
like,
other people can.
As like the viewer, I couldn't see how many likes you got. So like you could still feed the ego
numbers.
of like, oh yeah, I got 100,000 likes or whatever.
Like leveraging things like, hey, I actually have a following and I have, you know, some sort of influence, and I really believe in your product and I want to partner up, kind of a thing I was thinking would stop. But if you can still see your numbers and show that,
you can still like quantify what it is, but like
it also shows that
see it.
But it also shows that all your, you know, feedback is real.
Yeah.
Because it's not just 1,000 people already clicked like.
Yeah, so I should like this because it's cool. You know, like
that's cool.
it's very fascinating.
It is very interesting because I specifically don't like any brand videos or photos or anything that, even when my like friends have something that have like a lot of likes, I'll be like,
Cool.
They got enough likes.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Ooh, that's a dirty dog, dude. If you like it, you gotta like it.
Dude, I'm kind of the same way though.
Yeah,
I mean,
should.
I don't even follow that many. Like, I follow 69 people on Instagram. That's it. And like, if I want to follow somebody else, if like, I don't know, I meet somebody and they're like, oh yeah, I do this cool stuff. I'm like, all right, I need to unfollow one person. And like,
Because you need the 69.
well,
number.
I love that number, of course. But like, I also like, it's become one of those things where like, I see people like scrolling their feed like crazy. And I was like, are you even looking at, like, do you even care what's on there? Or are you just scrolling for like the sake of it?
No, I'm totally that.
It's
person
cool
that
to be
scrolls
able
for
to
the sake of
see
it,
like actual like, yeah, I'm genuinely interested in these people, and like it's less content, but like then I find myself on that platform less.
Yeah.
But
That's so funny because I don't actually look at my feed pretty much ever, but I look at the search function because I follow enough of the things, like the people that I'm excited about and the things that I'm excited about. So now I just follow it to like, oh, that's a woodworking thing that's possible, or oh, that's a thing that's possible.
it's crazy
And I
how
get
well those
excited about
algorithms
that.
work to like show
Yeah.
you what you want to see. You're like, I didn't even
took
know
a
I was
long-
interested in that, but I am interested now.
Yeah, it took a long, hard campaign of like erasing the right people from like following the right people to get all the booty pictures out. But once that happened, it's become like a really fun thing to do where like I get inspired. I'm like, oh, I could go learn this woodworking thing, or like, oh, that's a cool thing. But if I do scroll into like a Red Bull post and, you know, I manage to watch it, I'm like, whoa, that was sick. Doesn't matter that has 12,000 likes. Like, I like that.
Yeah.
Versus I see other things that they post and I'm like,
Whatever.
you're not getting a like.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you're my friend. Like, if I don't like something my friend does, they're not getting a like any more readily than if they had 12,000 likes and I still liked it, I'm still liking it.
We're talking too
Yeah.
much about likes.
We
It's
got
just
into it.
getting
It is
insane.
crazy
Yeah.
though that's like what drives society right now.
Yeah,
Is like
pretty
social status. Like that is a big
well,
driver.
because it matters. Like,
Yeah.
if Traction Coffee has 100,000 followers on any platform, you're gonna be making a living at it. Versus if you, same with us, Joy Quota has 100,000 followers. We're set.
It just adds that like
And
validness to
we're
it.
just, We're just not. Neither of us are there, and so we're not making a living at it. And I guess scraping by, trying to get those followers is where we're at right now, and that's hopefully the fun part that we can both.
It's interesting like
So
how
far, so fun.
Yeah.
how that facade like creates like a bigger following though. You know what I mean? Like having like if you did have 100,000 followers, like people are more inept to like subscribe or check it out. And like same thing with like Traction. Like one thing we've noticed a lot, which is crazy, is like just branding. Like compared to like with Hotbox. So like we'd go into places and we'd be like, hey, check out this coffee. It's really good. No, we're not interested. We literally walk in with one of these bags and people are like, this is awesome. I like the design. You know, and it's like, it's crazy when you start like diving into like really what the facade is of what you're doing. Like, not to say that this wasn't really thought out when we designed it, but like it does add a lot of like is it validity? Is that a word? Yeah, like validness to what you're doing. And the same thing with like likes and follows. Like it's kind of the same thing of like how it looks from the outside.
Yeah. Going back to genuineness, it has to be like the reason that makes sense is like I look at that bag and I can absolutely see like you creating that bag. There's
that was the first design project I've ever done
in
too.
Gimmicks or anything like that versus like you can see with like certain companies real quick where you're like, oh, you're clearly just trying to bandwagon onto whatever's cool right now. Like, what do you even stand for?
Yeah.
Like, there's no actual depth to it versus like, yeah, it's a cool bag, but I look at it and I'm like, I can see Mike making that.
Yeah, we're like,
100%.
we wanted to do it our own way, but like we also wanted it to look like an
Nice.
agency made it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but I think that's kind of also like a downfall at the same time. It can be. Because people look at it and they're like, oh, you guys are legit. Like, do you want to donate to our campaign or whatever they're doing? I'm like, dude, we don't even make money.
We would like it if you would donate to
exactly.
us.
Like,
I'm doing this in my basement.
yeah, it's crazy, you know. Like, but again, it kind of goes back to how you look on the outside.
Yeah.
So where is Traction
Yeah,
Coffee
where can people get it?
available?
Right now, we do e-commerce is like our number one retail spot. We have a few like retailers around Colorado, but I think e-commerce is going to be our biggest focus for the time being. And then we're working towards opening up a cafe in Longmont.
Nice.
So it'll be a roastery cafe, like more of like a community spot to hang out. You know, like we'll have like a conference room and all that stuff. But you'll be able to come in and see like where we're roasting, check all that stuff out, get a drink, hang out. Just a cool spot to hang out.
That's
so
really cool.
we're hoping that's off, like, you know, a couple months off at this point. But
Wow, that's pretty
Nice.
awesome.
yeah, we've got a spot that we're like, you know, it's
Crossing
still
the fingers for.
yeah, it's still at the point of like we're like basically at the tipping point of like it's gonna work or it's not.
Yeah.
But we're committed at this point to opening up an actual spot and like getting out of. We're up in lines in like a beautiful spot right now, but we definitely want to be hanging out in like more of like a visible spot, you know, and like
Yeah.
where people can come in and hang out and like we can do things that are educational and like share coffee and like build a community around the brand as opposed to it just being like another coffee company. We want to build our own community. So
That's awesome. So is it just tractioncoffee.com?
traction.coffee
Traction.coffee.
Yeah.
There we go.
or tractioncoffeeroasters.com. But yeah, traction.coffee is the easiest way to get to it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Boom. Well, thank you so much for joining
Yeah.
us, Mike. This has been awesome.
Thank you guys. This was fun. It was good to catch up with you guys for sure. Now we need to go ride some bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once he's back from China.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be fun, man. I can't wait to see some photos from that.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll have all ridden together before people even hear this podcast by the time it makes it out.
Yeah. Let's make that happen.
Yeah.
That'd be a fun challenge. I like that. Sweet.
Deal.
Heck yeah, guys.